Nice. Let's get started.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. I'm wearing the moderator hat. Accurate?
Yes.
All right. So hello. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Saraswati. I'm a little sick right now, so I might be nasalier than usual, though you wouldn't know that because you don't know me. But I do product things, and I'm a coordinator on the Circles team. And I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and then have us as a team go around and introduce ourselves. So yeah, I'm again project coordinator and product lead, and have been working on this project for around 6 months, maybe longer. I am a consensus employee. So I work at an organization called Consensus that I've been at for over now. And I am based in Brooklyn, but I'm currently in Los Angeles. And I guess what I'll say is when I pass the torch, maybe my teammates can say their roles, their names, their roles, where they're from, where they are, and then anything else that if they'd like to. So let's keep this intro to maybe 10 minutes if we can, maybe less.
Hi.
Oh, and then, yeah, we're recording. Great.
My name is Andy. I am from Detroit, Michigan. I'm a developer. And I am focusing on the back end and particularly on smart contracts. I work with a group called DAPA. We focus on smart contracts, developer tools, and formal verification. And I'm not based anywhere right now. This is my home right here.
Okay, my name is Harriet. I am an artist and writer by training, and at Circles I'm part of the communication and the coordination team. And since I'm in Berlin, I'm also part of the Berlin business development rollout team, because that's where we're gonna start to have Circles as it looks right now. And I've been on board since last September, so not such a long time. And at the moment I'm saying hi to you from Rome, where I am, and where there's a bit of sun, which is great.
Nice, very nice. I am Martin, and I am in the country where there's not a lot of sun right now, which is Sweden, which is also where I'm from. And I am a developer and researcher. I do a lot of programming and formal verification. I just started working with DAP this Tuesday. And via that, I am doing a lot of work on Circles right now on our governance protocol, thinking about how we make decisions. And then I'll also be involved in programming the actual smart contracts and that whole development process.
I am Love, and I'm also from Sweden, from Stockholm, and I joined as a programmer, which is why I was hired for Consensus as well, to write smart contracts and other stuff in the stack. And I am in the middle of transitioning to a different role, and I've been researching political memes and cultural change in the world, and I'm aspiring to be a writer and thought person, thinker for Circles.
All right, I'm Gael. I come from France, living in the US, working at Consensus. I do tech docs, and I'm a junior developer, and I joined the Circles team like a couple months ago. That's it.
All right, I'm Wouter. I'm from Belgium, where I'm also located at the moment. I'm part of the Circles development team as a software architect. So I help with development of the backend mainly, and the overarching architecture together with the team. We're now preparing our next version of the app. That's it.
I am Ronit. I am a student, I guess, based in Berlin, and I've been with the project like for a very long time. We started off as a little basic income advocacy group here. And I was kind of project coordinating in the beginning and recruiting until all these guys came along, and now I'm on the communications and the Berlin business team. Is that everybody?
Everybody.
So maybe we make a quick shout out to the people that are on the team that are not on this call.
Yeah, Ed, also, I think he was like the second person to get on board. Work closely with Martin, who's had the original idea for Circles and is also based in Berlin. And he's been a big basic income advocate for many years in Ireland. And he's also on the development team and the Berlin business team.
Yeah, so I guess there's Ed, there's Karanina, who is on the Berlin biz dev and on the communication side, and is super awesome. It's a really great team. And then there's Martin Kopelman, who is obvious, and the inception point here, but he is a busy guy. So is not on this call at the moment. Are we missing anybody else? I would hate to miss.
Did you mention Mehul from the rules?
Oh yeah, that's an important one. No,
Ashoka also.
Oh shit, Ashoka. Okay, right.
And
yeah, some wonderful people, but maybe we should get to know.
Well, so Mehul is, works with an organization called The Rules, and The Rules does sort of like deep critical readings of memetics, and kind of is building out a way to be a larger inception point for universal basic income in broader society, and build momentum with the concept, and investigate how investigate its resonance right now in different communities. And it was a super interesting organization with a bunch of extremely intelligent individuals. And then, so that's Mehul, and he's wonderful. There's Ashoka. Ashoka is a developer who's also at Consensus, and does front-end and back-end stuff, is a self-proclaimed chief anarchist officer, and he's dope. So that is the team on our side.
and there's also Anne.
Wait, who?
Anne Walter.
Oh yeah, Anne's been. Harriet, maybe you can talk about Anne.
Yeah, Anna will be joining us again in February. She has been away for a few months now, and she's also part of the Berlin rollout communications team, and also based in Berlin with us. Yeah. Did we forget anyone? I think now we are all here.
If we did forget someone, then sorry.
Lack of love.
We still love you, whoever you are. We still love you.
And then there's you, dear friends. I think that now that we've introduced ourselves, it would be wonderful to hear from everyone on the call who you are, where you are, what you do, and what brought you to Circles. Yeah. I can kind of just pick you guys if you want. We can go in alphabetical order. Who's Bert? Bert, go right ahead.
Bert does not have a microphone, and so
Bert, can you write it in the chat?
he did. I will read it aloud for the record. Bert says that he is an organizer of a Brussels-based meetup group on the topic of, I'm guessing, of UBI. And they had Martin over last year talking about circles.
Awesome. Thank you. Nice.
And he also says that he spoke with Wouter on a phone call recently. I remember this one. There was like a whole bunch of different projects that were presented.
Yes, I think this was a meetup in Brussels with a lot of interested and interesting people, where we kind of reintroduced the project and had some discussion about what is different between Circles and other cryptocurrency UBI projects.
Nice.
Cool. Bert, if you find a moment and can tell us what you do or what you're interested in the chat, please feel free. But if it's a little bit of trouble, then we can move on to Fabian. Fabian?
Hey, I'm Fabian. I'm also based in Berlin, so I know all the Berlin crew, and I basically came to Circles through Martin, who I also know for some time now. I'm a social psychologist by trade. I'm doing my PhD. I like the idea of basic income since quite some time, and I think Martin's idea is great and full of potential, and I'm really looking forward to the rollout. Yeah, that's it.
Welcome.
Nice. Cool. Thank you, Fabian. And then I see a Johannes. This would be Johannes Zerbst.
Johannes also does not have a microphone. He's a journalist from Berlin.
He knows Ronit, Ed, Karina, and me because he's doing a documentary on Circles, or planning to, and has been following the project for quite some time already, and has been meeting Martin also. So,
That's
Johannes.
so awesome.
Yes.
Hello, Johannes.
Are both of the Johannes the same, in fact, or does the Johannes that doesn't go by the last name of Zerbst also, is he also here and can speak?
Looks like that guy doesn't have a microphone either.
Do we have a Sybil account on board or not?
Oh, no.
Nerds. Okay, so Johannes, is there another Johannes or is it just one Johannes?
Johannes is on both devices.
Okay, cool. Then Luke.
Hey guys. Yeah, I introduced myself earlier, but I think there's more people now. I'm here because I saw the Twitter post, and I remember reading about the Circles project like months and months ago, and finding the mechanism pretty interesting. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of where things are at and what's going on. I'm currently working on the Aragon project, focused on researching different governance mechanisms that can be done on the blockchain. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Nice. A stone's throw. Relatively speaking. Thank you, Luke. Modig.
Yes,
hello. Would I pronounce that right? Sorry.
Yeah, Modig, yes, it's correct. And you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. I got to know Circles from Love. I live in Sweden. I think it sounds like a really interesting project. I'm a full stack developer, and I would really like to help you out with the programming. I haven't done anything in Ethereum yet or smart contracts, but I don't know. Let's see what's planning ahead here.
That is a great segue. Nice to meet you, Modig. That is a great segue into probably we should talk about product and stuff, right?
Yes.
Yes. Totes. We got everybody. Oh, thank you, Bert. Bert shared with us that his Twitter handle and that he's a member of Open Knowledge Belgium and will be taking 1 year leave from his current job in March this year to spend more time on projects that he can choose himself on open data and also maybe help and contribute to the work of Circles. Awesome.
That would be great.
So, yeah, we would love to give you guys a sense of where we're at. We have a roadmap we can share with you, Harriet, if you want to share screen or pass me host, either way. Great. So Harriet, do you want to walk through it or should I?
I was thinking maybe everyone talks about their cluster. Maybe that's the easiest way because, or what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All is good. So then maybe you and Andy could start with the dev and the product side of it.
Cool, I'll let Andy lead because it's dev first on this diagram.
Can you just maximize, yeah, there.
Andy, if you're talking, you are muted.
It just said that he left the room. I don't know. Why don't you start first and then we'll go back to him.
Okay. So yeah, we are right now looking at, we kind of had a soft launch in Berlin last year, just basically putting a prototype in people's hands. On the dev side, it is not a blockchain-based product at the moment, but we are working on a redesign of the interface in accordance with some new logic, and I'll be interviewing vendors and users in Berlin with what some of the vendors are basically. Sorry, I'm jumping into this kind of like pretty rapidly, but so what was that? Oh, you're back.
My Wi-Fi booted me. Do you want to talk about stuff?
Yeah, I was just jumping into product. But if you want to start with dev, that's fine. It might be easier for me to follow.
Okay. Oh, wow. This is gorgeous. Look at this. So it's January. On the development side here, we can see the main thing that we're going to be doing is specification of the, okay, so I'll take a step back. Circles has elements that live on a blockchain and then elements that don't live on a blockchain. At a super high level, the elements that live on the blockchain are the token contract and then the trust graph, which you can consider the core of the idea. The thing that doesn't live on a blockchain is the route finding algorithm. So there's this idea of transitive trust, transitive payments, as we all know. So this process of finding a route from you to whoever you want to pay transitively requires graph analysis, and it requires computation that can't be done on a blockchain. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a server that caches all of the relevant data and then does the route finding algorithm for you and then serves a route to the mobile app, which is then packaged into the transaction format and announced to the blockchain. So in this way, we have, I guess you could say, two different backend stacks. I mean, it's all part of one stack, but there's like two different main stacks. The smart contracts are very, very simple. It's just that's actually what's so attractive about the idea is that the smart contracts are the DApp is actually very simple. So a lot of the work is going to be in creating a robust production grade off-chain route finding server. And so that's what we're going to be doing for the next few months. And so the first element of that, of course, is specifying the API. By API, I mean this off-chain server, and then planning our implementation. So we've already done a few meetings in December. We've got another one planned for next week, I believe Wednesday. And so we're just going to be, what we're going to be doing is going through the current screenshots that we have of the app, and then just very, very rigorously specifying all of the behaviors we're going to need from app to API. So that's, I'm very much in favor of doing a lot of rigorous thinking up front when it comes to software development, whether it's smart contracts or something else. So that's something that I expect to take the rest of the month, really, really getting it down to the point where we're comfortable with the architecture. Then at the same time, in parallel, and Saraswati is going to talk about this more, but we're going to have a design cycle going, working on the actual product and the design that we expect to present to users. And then as that gets finalized, we're going to be giving that to our front-end team. We have been in some dialogue with a front-end development shop, but basically anybody who wants to work on the front end will also spend January doing implementation planning for the front end. So those two things I hope to happen in parallel. Then, should I just like run through the whole thing, or should somebody else talk about January?
No. Oh wait, should someone talk about what?
Should somebody else talk about other things that are happening in January, or should I just do the whole idea of the dev? I can do it.
You're welcome to talk about whatever you want.
Okay, cool. I'll just run right through it because so far I've got it planned through March. So in January, the development, for February, the development that I'm going to want to focus on is getting So circles is something that's targeted at people who are not already interested in blockchains. And so as a result, we can't make the assumption that they know what Ethereum is, that they know what Ether is, and especially that they have it. So in the future, in the roadmap of the Ethereum roadmap, the idea is that contracts are going to be able to pay for their own gas, which allows users to not think about Ether and still use the blockchain. There are other blockchains, as we know, that don't have concepts of gas at all, such as the US. So in the medium to long term, circles may exist on any number of blockchains. There's many, many interesting blockchains out there. And we are adopting a policy of conservatism when it comes to choosing a public blockchain. In the meantime, our plan is to launch a private Ethereum instance, a private Ethereum network that will allow us to get certain benefits of a blockchain, such as cryptographic security, while not dealing with some of the usability drawbacks, such as forcing users to buy Ether. So we're going to run our own private Ethereum testnet, and we're just not going to charge transaction fees. So anybody can just write to the blockchain for free, but the only app that will be on the system, at least at first, is going to be Circles. And then in the future, that's obviously not sustainable over the long term, so we're going to migrate to some kind of public blockchain once it is at a stage of usability that we're comfortable with. So in February, what I'm going to focus on is getting private blockchain up and running, and then likewise getting the blockchain caching solution, which is a database product called Vulcanize DB. Our good friends over at Vulcanize Development are working on it right now. It's being actively developed, and in my estimation, it's going to be the best fit for our use case. So we're going to be setting up both of those at the same time. At the same time, we're going to be setting up the core API web service. So just kind of like the really basic, generic web service components that we're going to need later as we start to add API features. In parallel, of course, that's the back end. In parallel with the front end, I would like to get started on the first front end epic. It sort of will depend on how the implementation plan goes to get a sense of what that's going to be. My guess is going to be, just like the core functionality. And we already have a prototype that we can build off of, but I know that we want to switch to from Angular to React. The app is currently implemented in Angular JS. We've been thinking about doing it in React Native so that we can target native mobile applications. So I'm not sure how much will cross over, and so my estimation or my intuition is that the first epic is going to be a lot of the same thing, sort of core core front end components. So those are the two things that I hope to get started in parallel in February, and then in March, my hope is that we'll have the core web service components moved far enough along that we can get started on the actual route finding algorithm, which is obviously the most important point of the web service. So the actual algorithm is very straightforward. It's the A-star route finding algorithm. It just uses basic graph analysis. We just have to implement it in, I guess it's Node. And then we just need to make the actual token transfer endpoint that allows you to request a route, receive the route, and then post a transaction. And then whatever the first front-end epic is, I hope to finish it by the end of March. So I'm looking at a 2-month front-end epic for February and March. And so that is as much as I've got planned so far. Like I said, through March, I expect that the roadmap is going to get filled out a lot more as we move through January and we specify the API and we come up with our own implementation plan. But this is stuff, it's obviously the highest priority stuff, and I can see that we're going to need to get started on this very, very soon. So that's what I'm comfortable saying we're going to be doing for the next couple of months.
Cool. Thank you, Andy.
Are there any questions?
Maybe we should save questions for the end.
Yeah, that's totally cool too.
Good idea.
Cool. So on the product side, I guess one thing that wasn't really mentioned on the development side that's kind of happening in tandem here is a governance structure. And we're sort of beginning to develop the logic of that structure now so that we can make decisions as a decentralized group of people trying to run a decentralized system more effectively and with a lot of transparency. So that is like a really important piece of the puzzle here that we've been tossing around, and I think it was Luke, like that where you were talking about researching governance. So figured it would be worth calling that out. On the product side right now, we're entering another cycle where we're reversioning, we're making a new version of the application. We're beginning to basically polish an MVP to put in app stores. Well, I can hear myself very tinnily on the other side of this in my ears. So we're basically structuring, we're going to try to like push this to the App Store, which is going to be a really interesting adventure, I think. And we're just having product stand-ups. And right now in user stories, we're revisiting our user stories. And then from there, we're going to continue just mapping it out and updating what is a fairly far along interface. So yeah, on the product side, I think that would really cover it. What I guess is kind of interesting to note is that we will be launching this again in Berlin sometime this like late spring or summer. And that will be with specifically vendors who are interested in participating in Berlin, because we have had some people raise their hands and express that they would be willing to accept circles as payment to a small degree at their business. So we're beginning to integrate vendors. And so I'll be running some interviews with vendors and users and begin testing the application. So simultaneously, I think it's worth mentioning because I don't think that research is fully articulated on this roadmap, that we're speaking with a lot of people who have, well, not a lot of people, we're speaking with some interesting researchers who have worked, some of whom have worked with UBI implementations in the past, though none of them have been blockchain based. And sort of this is tied in with product, basically surfacing metrics in order to test the impact of the product on different communities, and also mapping different kinds of communities that would be receptive to a like you know, what's the way of putting it, farm to table, for example, UBI. That's a weird way of putting it, but basically what communities would actually embrace a new complementary currency in their ecosystem. And then like, what do we want to know from those communities once we bring this into their system, and what do they need to know from us? So all of those questions are on the table in the upcoming months, and we're surfacing exactly what those metrics are, and exactly which communities we want to move forward with later in the year when we implement this in a more full-fledged community that's not just vendors loosely in Berlin, but is also potentially like a more scaled version with like you know, maybe where we speak to farmers, for example, and have the traction of this UBI go from farmer to vendor to consumer. So that is the kind of rough product roadmap. Any questions on that? Y'all are real quiet out there. Great. Must be doing a very thorough job. So then that leads us, and also if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, but we'll also have an open time at the end of this where you guys can ask questions as well. So then I think I'll hand it to Harriet.
Okay, I can do the communication and the internal organization part, and maybe Ronit, if you want to finish with Berlin then, so we zoom into the actual place where we're going to launch. Okay, for PR, well, what we are doing already in January and what we have been doing in the past month is kind of get the communication material ready. So we have the basis for all communication that is supposed to happen with potential cooperation partners and users and press. We're going to review the website and create additional content for it to give a little bit more insight into our working process, but also to provide more in-depth information. And probably we're also going to work out some needs for a graphic designer at that point. So if any of you is a graphic designer, please get into contact. In February, we are going to kick off the communications for the what we call Summit right now, 2018. It's going to be a little workshop and symposium, which will also have a public part, and that is what we'll be start to prepare, and then also updating the website and setting up a blog, and create a script for an explainers video as part of the communication material that we need to explain the system behind circles as precisely and clearly as possible to a lot of people with very different backgrounds and communities. And in March, we're gonna publish that info hopefully on the summit. We're gonna have our blog live, so publish the first posts and have the white paper updated and layouted by then. Yes, I mean, all of this is kind of obviously continuously going on all the time. But in April, we want to have that explainer video ready and online. The summit, probably it will be the most important phase of communication and preparation. So that's going to take a huge chunk of our resources, I think. And we're going to start the more Berlin-focused campaign, since, as we said, that is our focus and our place to be. And for the organization internal, yes, that is kind of just two very important things that we're doing right now. One is the organizational manifesto that also Saraswati was mentioning already, that we want to set up, and the roadmap will be completed and updated as we go, because of course this is just a very rough draft for the next month, and I think all of the clusters that you can see here will have a lot more to add in the next time. And other than that, yes, of course the budgets need to be solidified and agreed upon within the team, so we're going to meet in Lisbon in the beginning of next month to have a lot of time with the whole team to agree, discuss, and adapt everything we have been doing until now and everything we want to do in the next month. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that, and maybe Ronit, you want to explain more specifically for Berlin what we have been thinking to do.
Sure. So for the newcomers, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a little bit of experience testing a very early and simplified prototype of circles in a tiny sort of half art project, half cafe structure, a tiny house cafe that's part of an exhibition of tiny houses at a museum here. And we are wanting to expand to an actual cafe that would perhaps also serve as a sort of meeting place, workspace, or a sort of clubhouse for a nonprofit organization. The thing is, if we were going to talk about the actual road ahead for this cafe, like what we're looking at here for the general road ahead, it would kind of have a starting point and then maybe 2 or 3 forks, because there are a lot of elements that are still up in the air at this time. One, because of questions of funding, and 2, because we are doing something really different and the very bureaucratic German government doesn't exactly know which box to put us in. So, or we need to think about how much risk we want to take and which box we claim that we're in. So we are going to be meeting this week and discussing some of these issues, and we've been speaking with our lawyers. But hopefully we'll have some more concrete updates soon. Did I miss anything here yet? No, we want to open up in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the idea would be that you could do circles at the cafe. And well, obviously we don't want to just have a cafe. We want to have an entire local network where circles can be used. And we're targeting a couple of places, and a couple of places have reached out to us, like Saraswati said, and hopefully the community will just grow organically.
Yes, so it's going to be an amazing next 6 months.
I like that, like, do circles. I think that's what you said. I don't know if that's actually what you said, but I like that, like, we could do circles at this cafe. Yeah, we're going to be doing some circles.
Hey, do you do circles?
Yeah, I think I meant to say favorite circles, but I like do circles. Do circles.
Yeah. Do you circle? So, cool. So that's a solid jumping off point. I guess the only thing that I think I might have missed was just like an overall sense of the structure of our team, which is that we are roughly 12 people, I believe, right now. And that we are divided into what you can see here is what this shows roughly five clusters of people who meet regularly to discuss these distinct pieces of the organism that is circles, and move things along. And then we have sort of representatives that join once a week for a stand-up where all of us come together and and discuss, ooh, this nice red line, and discuss where we're at. And so I just feel like that's worth illuminating. So with that, I think it's a good moment to just open it up for questions. And also to thank you guys for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Great that you're there. You can also put the questions in the chat. Maybe I will stop sharing right now this screen so I can see you guys again. Yes.
Also, it's cool if you don't have any questions. Sometimes I feel like on the spot to ask a question, and then I ask a dumb question that I didn't even want to ask. So it's okay.
Yeah, and we want to do this once a month, approximately, this community call. So if you don't have a question right now, you're also super welcome to join us next time and then ask whatever you want. And of course, you can always talk to us in the chat if you haven't done it by now. We're always happy to have new faces and nicknames there.
Yeah, and generally we are open to people wanting to join the project, not just follow it, but also contribute to work. And obviously, if we are to launch a new currency and we want it to be largely driven by the community and for the community, then we need many people of different communities to come together and develop things together. And we have not been super aggressive about, hey, come join us so far, because we need to formalize the procedure around what it actually means to be part of the team and how we make decisions on who can join, and so that we don't have Johannes joining twice, for example, and other civil attacks like that. But these types of calls will be part of that community building process, and really having this whole project being a very decentralized driven development.
Yeah, this is good old-fashioned open source, driven by the love from your hearts.
Nice.
It might. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would have a question maybe for the more technical people. If you could talk a little bit about the privacy or anonymity aspects of circles or the problems that might arise with it. Because the nice thing about paper money is that it's completely anonymous. I can buy at the communist bookstore, and nobody knows I trust the communist bookstore. And and in circles, because of the whole trust network thing, is this an issue you are thinking about? Do you have anything to say to that?
It really depends how zero-knowledge proofs end up working on Ethereum. So there are proposed implementations that I've heard that would not give you privacy using circles, and then there are much more native sort of approaches that I think you could still get privacy. So specifically, with regards to Ethereum, it's kind of an unanswered question. With other blockchains, even more unanswered. I don't even know what the privacy story on what is it called, EOS is, and then for other chains, even less so. So kind of like obviously a nice to have, but if that's the trade-off that we have to make, where you can't buy communist propaganda with circles money, then it's not the end of the world. But I agree with you that it is very, very, very desirable.
Also, to clarify on that, I don't think that this is specifically a question for the Circles protocol, but for blockchain usage, because You don't have to be trusted by the bookstore to buy a book, as you can be validated instead by a validator that you both use. So I don't think that privacy is a big concern in Circle's technology in itself, but of course, whenever you use a blockchain, every transaction is public. So that is left
Also,
to be decided.
Wouter brought up a good point. It's totally a rabbit hole, so we should like tactically avoid it right now. But if we ever build second layer currencies on top of Circles, they function as kind of like a depository of personal coins and then vending kind of an anonymized coin, then you can have privacy with any of the proposed Ethereum privacy implementations. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like washing your coins a little bit. So it may be the case that core Circles does not work that way, but then maybe something on top of it does work that way. Oh, and then also Bert is asking a couple of questions over here in the chat, so I'm just going to read them aloud for the record. Bert asked if development will be in the open or on GitHub or with periodical releases. I don't really see a reason to do it privately. There's not much risk associated with it, so I would guess it's going to be all in the open on GitHub. It has been thus far. We don't have any private repositories. And those cost money. Let's do that. So then the next question that he asked is, what are the main roadblocks, in our opinion? He suggested Ethereum scalability. That's definitely a thing, but kind of out of our hands, of course. Another one that he suggested was structural, getting it to receive real value. I thought that this would be difficult, but in my experience, the people who come into our chat just demanding to sell their things for Circles sort of suggests that like it is, I don't know, the narrative is very compelling. So I have a feeling, it's totally intuition, but I have a feeling that getting people to assign real value to it with the narrative of what Circles is isn't going to be a huge problem. Getting the message out there will be very a thing that we have to make sure that we do correctly. But once people get the idea, I mean, just like it's the most seductive idea ever, right? Like just it's like everything that Bitcoin promised to be, basically. And then Saraswati suggested very aptly that one of the real biggest roadblocks is going to be the Apple Store. This is like the final boss, sort of like nobody knows what's going to happen with the Apple Store. They're so arbitrary and picky especially about cryptocurrency, that like who the hell knows? We have to have like all sorts of contingencies if they just can't deal with what we're doing. And then the last question from Bert.
Add to that for a second, Andy?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I really hope that what you're saying is true and that people are just jumping out of their seats to sell their stuff in Circles, but we want to kind of kickstart that, and that is the point of having a cafe and having these other vendors that are going to adapt it in some capacity. At the beginning, it won't be 100% capacity. It might be, for instance, a local bar that'll take it once, one beer per person per week, something like that. And basically, money has value if you can buy something with it. So we're gonna work hard to make sure that people can buy stuff with it.
That's a very good point, Rodney. That reminds me of sort of a similar strategic idea that we've discussed is the first thing that we want to focus on, and I think we've even discussed it earlier in this call, is buying food with Circles. It's like, if you can buy food with it, everybody needs food, and everybody needs the same amount of food every day, roughly speaking. So if you can buy food with it, it's just like the great equalizer. So that is what we're hoping we can first target is food. And then are there any follow-up points? Because Bert has another question here.
I think that the biggest roadblock is just having it be a public, like a point of discussion in the mainstream narrative of the world, which is ultimately really, really what we want and need, I think, with this project, of what money actually is and what it should be. And once people realize how much of reality is defined by money and how much power is conveyed through money, they really want democratic money and And then, like, once we reach that point, like, no one will want anything else in circles. I think every other kind of money will be seen as dirty if it's not based
Well,
on.
not every other kind of money, but just
Yeah,
currency.
yeah, I mean, if it's based on circles, yeah, I think so. Yeah, if
I
it's
don't
not.
necessarily. Yeah, I think that maybe the conversation will at least begin to recenter around where value belongs.
Yeah.
If it's not on artificially scarce, semi-precious metals, then maybe it can be on other things. And so, yeah, so there'll be a lot of interesting conversations, and I think there will be a lot of interesting currencies in that vein too. And it's cool to be facilitating the conversation. Yeah.
Right.
But I agree with you, Luva. The trickiest part is just like explaining to people what money is and getting them to understand. But Circles is very ambitious in terms of what we're trying to do. If there's nobody else that wants to talk about roadblocks, there's 2 other questions in here that we should field.
Yeah, let's do it. We got 5 minutes left on this call. Just a heads up.
Bert asks, are we confident enough on the power of the trust network mechanism to protect against Sybil attack? What I would say to that is that it's the best mechanism that I've seen so far. It is the most resilient. So a lot of cryptocurrency UBI projects that I've encountered, they have what you could consider a catastrophic failure mode. So it works really, really well until it stops working, and then just the whole thing just like explodes, basically. And the thing that I like about Circles is that it's much more difficult to get started, and there's sort of like a usability trade-off, but the whole, like, the entire thing explodes all at once is much less likely because it's so decentralized and it's so based on the user's own estimation of reality. So I have a feeling that the end result is going to be very similar to what cryptocurrency UBI projects propose now, which is sort of like relying on institutions to validate people's identities. But the most important thing to me in the world is that this feature of having institutions verify people's identities is not a core part of the protocol. It's pushed out to the edges of the protocol. So you don't need to use institutional validators to use Circles. It's just like a huge, huge benefit if you do. And if one of them fails, you can easily switch to another one without anything like getting all messed up. So it doesn't rely on one specific institutional validator, which is, I think, the most attractive part of Circles, even though what you wind up with is a fairly weird system.
Yeah, let me just add to that it's important to realize that failures due to Sybil attacks will always be localized to the person that has made the wrong decision to trust several people that turn out to be one, because of the trust network only being constructed in such a way that you only receive the coins of the people that you actually do trust. And then this whole network of like building the core, which will be quite complicated and probably not a level at which most people will want to work at, but really having the strongest security and really being the most, rebellious tinfoil hat anarchists really want to live at this base core level, and then most ordinary users would probably be pretty happy trusting some validator that allows them to use Circles without learning about a million blockchain concepts before getting started. Now, ideally, we want to make it as simple as possible also in this base level, but yeah, that is probably how these different layers will interact. And I guess that also goes into answering the next question from Luke that I will read out, which is, if using Circles is not possible without relying on an off-chain server for route finding, is there a risk that a component can be compromised? Would users be able to run their own routing server? They would. So because of the fact that the blockchain just takes as input a route that you have found already, then you can do that, and we'll also be providing nice APIs for services like that. But obviously, if you don't even trust the API that you're getting the data from, you can find your own routes through the network. Cool.
Cool.
Martinez.
Hi, Kevin Martinez.
Get a new.
Kevin, you're
Hey
welcome.
everyone.
Hey.
Good to be here. I just joined in, like stumble in.
Word.
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. I'm doing well when I'm talking about circles.
Nice. That's great. I know I recognize some of your faces, some Swedish faces here, and also Harriet. I've been chatting with her for the last couple of weeks. I'm here because I've got a tip from Martin and Love van Millen about the Circles project. I've been working as a producer and manager for creative projects within the music and the game industry. So I know a lot of coordination and management stuff, some like the ordinary team management and planning, that sort of thing. And I'm here because I'm super interested in bringing forth some kind of UBI, and like I believe in change, of course. It's like I'm super interested in working with projects and teams where change is rooted in the in its DNA, because it's super important. I also believe that we live in a post-structural poke, or like an era of post-structuralism. So where we are to question the structures that we have in society and see if we can improve them.
Does that include when to join a meeting, like joining right when everyone's about to say goodbye?
Actually, I thought that the meeting was 8:30 this morning, and I had problems showing up 8:30 this evening. I'm sorry about that.
Very post-structural structure. Cool. Well, nice to meet you, and glad you showed up anyway, because it's good to see you. But I guess we should wrap, unless there are any other questions. And Kevin, we'll have another one of these, so your questions will be answered. And you can also ask us questions anytime on the chat. And this is recorded, so you can watch it later.
Great.
Right. Good. That's good. Okay, so thank you guys. I'll just leave one awkward 30-second silence for questions.
I have a question.
What's your question?
If I am really intrigued after watching this video and I want to learn more and get in touch with everybody here, how do I do that?
Well, Martin.
Chat.joincircles.net.
.net.
Also, join our new Facebook page. Give us a like.
Yeah, and we have a Twitter. Our Twitter and our Facebook are unified in their handle name. It's Circles UBI, and our GitHub is also Circles UBI.
Hey, Saraswati, Luba, Andy, and Martin, can I put a little screenshot of you guys in the Facebook page?
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I did my eyebrows this morning.
I can tell.
You look great.
Thank you.
They look like beautiful caterpillars.
Hoping somebody would notice.
I noticed you looked great.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So, Martin, did that answer your question? Are you feeling sated?
Totally.
Okay, nice and full. Of Circles love for all. Harriet, you are muted, but you seem to be talking.
Sorry, I was just saying that I love this question. I think it's a very good question, and I'm very happy that Martin asked it. Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
So until the next time, which will probably be in maybe a month.
Yes, that is what.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody. Love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right.